And now, presenting today's intro, it's Felicia!
We definitely didn't forget what episode it was, and this isn't being added later.
No, I do the even episodes, because my name starts with an E. I don't think that's why we did it, but that's now the truth. So this is my
intro. It actually used to be reversed, and at an unknown date, it switched around. But now we've committed, and feel weird if we fuck it up.
Yes, we don't like to have things get mixed up and messy. So I have made my intro now, and wow, oh my gosh, Felicia, wait, tell me a funny little story about yourself.
You know, sometimes when you're depressed and people say, go on a walk, it'll make you feel better. And you go, no, I don't want to. I don't want to go on the walk. It won't make me feel better and it'll suck. And then eventually you concede and your mom drives you out the door and you go on the walk. And by the end of the walk, you do feel better, but you're not happy about it. You're a little bit annoyed that you did enjoy this thing you said you weren't going to. I feel like that is the exact feelings and emotions that we experienced with Matilda the musical on Netflix. Because I don't know how much... I feel like we talked about this on the podcast briefly, but we tried to watch this movie about 4 separate times. So our spite for the film was not built up because we just didn't want to watch it. It's because we kept actively trying and were being fed incorrect release dates because they were like, oh, it's coming out in November.
Yes.
And I was like, great, amazing. It's a Netflix release. Surely that means it'll be on Netflix in November. They were like, no, it turns out it's actually having a UK-only limited theater run on November, and that's why you got those dates. So then we had on the episode calendar, we had to move it. They say it's coming out like December 1st. I'm like, fucking great. I turn out, look it up the next day. That's only in the UK. It's not even on the US Netflix yet. Also the wrong date. And I have a VPN, but I didn't want to stoop that low. I didn't want to do that to myself.
Yeah.
It wasn't fair. So we moved again. And then at that point, I think we just didn't want to, and new things had come up. And I'm saying this all to say we have pushed this off about 4 times. And even before recording this one, I texted Elaine, do you want to do Matilda? We don't have to.
And
this
then
has been a journey for us.
I said, we can. Are you going to be okay with that? Like, as a check-in, like, are we good? Are we actually good? I know that that's what's planned, but are we sure? Are we in a good space?
And the annoying thing is we watched it and it was fucking delightful.
It was so
lovely.
cute.
It was adorable. And I like, man.
Weirdly enough, we're probably going to be a little pissed throughout this because I'm mad that I liked it. I almost cried multiple times.
Oh, I did cry multiple times, Elaine.
Oh, man.
The power of musical theater and a migraine. I think the migraine was part of it. I'm going to be honest.
Oh,
you know,
my
a migraine, you're already a little teary-eyed all the time.
Yes.
So I don't think that helped my case. But yeah, and I also think, like, I liked Matilda more than the other Roald Dahl stuff. And, like, for example, I performed Naughty by Matilda as an audition song.
Wow.
Naughty by Matilda, like it's her song. Let me say. That makes it sound like a Britney Spears pop act.
It's funny. I absolutely did not like Matilda going into any of it. Like, I don't like
Really?
Matilda. Yep.
Wow.
But you performed it. Sorry, continue. Yes.
So I did the song Naughty from this as an audition for Honk Jr. at a local community theater. And I got the part of one of the mean duckling sisters. So.
Oh, sick.
And I did do it in the accent, which is wild. That was uncalled for.
And to make sure you get cast in future stuff, welcome to Wonka Watch, the podcast all about the Wonkaverse. We are deep,
I thought you were going to make me sing it. I was so fucking scared.
I thought you got a microphone. The time to shine is now.
Welcome
Anyway,
to Wonka Watch.
we've
How does
lost
us
it.
announcing the name of the podcast mean we'll be cast in future roles?
Well, we were going to get I was going to get to your name.
Okay.
So, yeah, anyway, we're talking a lot about Wonka leading up to the prequel starring Timothée Chalamet that's releasing in motherfucking December. And we've been doing this a goddamn fucking long time because you can tell it's episode 77. And we talk literally about everything. So I'm one of your hosts. My name's Elaine.
And my name is Felicia.
And
Sorry. I just got paranoid that we have the wrong date. No,
Oh,
this
it's
is
not
episode 78. This is episode 78.
Fuck.
Pop Tropica's 77.
Oh no. Felicia.
Wait, do a little tiny
Shit.
intro
Oh, okay.
so that we don't fuck this up, and then
Okay,
we
you
can
ready?
segue into mine. Perfect. We
Gorge.
fixed the problem. So that
Everything's
thing you heard in
fine.
the beginning, we just did that now. Isn't that crazy?
Oh my
Isn't
gosh.
Time travel so cool.
I'm sorry, was it
I love
magic?
Interstellar.
Was it powers? Were they little powers we got?
Wonka Watch News. Oh my god, look at this. It's a floating newspaper floating through my window. It crashed through the glass. Meow! That's the noise that glass makes, and that's the noise that paper makes.
Yeah.
I have 2 pieces of paper, and they've both been thrown in by some of our Wonka scholars in the community.
Oh, yay.
Our first piece of Wonka news comes from our listener, Garrett, and they messaged us about the UK tour. And there's some fun little details about the UK tour. We're not going to talk about this super in depth, but they have tackled the problem of the Oompa Loompa and done something
this is
new.
The Charlie and the Chocolate Factory musical.
Yes,
Okay.
Charlie and the Chocolate
UK
Factory
tour.
musical UK tour.
Nice.
They turn the Oompa Loompas into robots, molded in Wonka's image, with top hats and a coat. And I'm like, perfect. The problem is solved.
It's
perfect. It's
resolution.
in character. It's everything about it makes sense.
That's so good.
And it still critiques the way that he exploits workers, but without it having, you know, the slavery element and colonialism element.
Wait, this is so good.
It's like perfectly in character and helps tone with the ickiness. We'll definitely talk about this more when info about the tour is easier to find, if you know what I mean. But
if you understand what I'm saying.
I wanted to mention it now. And then I also found separately in my Wonka News Digest today, through some emails about it going woke, that of the 4 kids who switch out to play Charlie, 2 of them are girls, which is honestly fine, because the character is essentially genderless. Like, even the name Charlie is pretty unisex at this point.
Yes.
I don't have a source for this because all of the articles were like, the lefties have gone too far. But it is true. It's listed on the tour site. I'm just going to say, they were like, families left confused. I'm like, if your enjoyment of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory rests on Charlie being a boy, I think this just shows how flawed of a text it is in the first place, 1. And number 2, I feel like you're missing the point, because truly I can think of almost no character where it changes less. Like, literally nothing changes.
Nothing changes.
Truly, there's nothing about that character that would change with gender. Like, he's the exact same, because he has no character or personality, essentially. In the musical, he has more.
Yeah, he has a little more, but like, it doesn't like
what does this change?
Anyway,
at all. I was like, wow. And then number 2 is from our listener Lainey. They sent us about Hershey's Great Candy Expedition, which is a new thing opening at the Hershey theme park. And I want to say here real quick, just because this is a good time to mention it, I have a little bit more complicated feelings about Hershey as a company since we last talked about them, because I've become a lot more aware of like international chocolate slave labor issues in the last few months, which is an industry-wide issue, basically, besides fair trade companies. There's a website called slavefreechocolate.org that you can get more info about the whole thing. I think it's just a good thing to raise awareness for, and has given me more complicated feelings about Hershey as a company. But I still did want to talk about Hershey's Great Candy Expedition. This is taking over the weird-ass 4D cinema chocolate spy adventure area, and it says, this is their text about it, "This summer, we can't wait to welcome you aboard a fantastical journey to epic candy worlds. It's a brand new cinematic train-themed adventure for the whole family that's literally out of this world." What is it about the chocolate world and the train world that is so intertwined? Because it feels like it keeps coming back, right? Like, this is, are we just seeing the train everywhere? Are we inside our immersive theater? You'll be whisked away to colorful lands inspired by Hershey candies. With interactive characters, dazzling special effects, and epic projection mapping technology, you'll feel like you're right inside the adventure.
I feel like trains are kind of coming back on trend. I don't really know what that means, but I'm just thinking like...
The autism community rejoices. I am autistic. In case there are new listeners, I am autistic. I gotta clarify. I feel like people would think that was a mean joke. I'm not a train autism person, but even I love a train. Like, I'm not. But anyway. Yeah, no, I guess trains are really on trend right now, says literally no one except for Elaine Best on Wonka Watch, the podcast, who is for some reason really into train-based media.
Have we talked real quick about the horror video game that came out called Choo Choo Charles? And if you recall,
no, but that sounds familiar. Yeah,
a train that gets like spider abilities goes and kills people, and you have to stop it. It's hilarious. But I will say, when Felicia and I,
did you watch Markiplier play that?
Don't at me like that. Don't at me like that. For all people know, I bought it myself and I played it myself like a big girl. and didn't watch somebody else play the horror video game where I could pause and leave. But it really isn't that spooky. But Felicia and I, like, you know, we were buddies at this conference we met at. But like this, the Scottsdale Train Museum really like solidified everything, and they had a little like fortune teller booth, but instead of it being like Zoltar, I think is his usual name, it was a conductor, and his name was Choo Choo Charlie. And so seeing Choo Choo Charles, I was like, what the fuck is going on? There's something about trains in the universe right now for us. I don't know.
Maybe we're just like hyper aware of anytime anyone mentions a train,
right? Like just we see trains.
I'm
now.
committed to it. I got a Caboose keychain from the Scottsdale Train Museum, and I still have it on my keychain. All right, let's talk about Matilda. So this movie came out like 2 or 3 months ago. How did you feel about Matilda before watching this, Elaine?
It was not my thing. I did not, in classic fashion with me and Roald Dahl, did not read it before ever. Mm-hmm. I've never read it. And then the movie to me just wasn't interesting. Like, I kind of felt like I was forced to watch it. Like, I have a thing about children actors, and it's not their fault, but I just don't really, unless it's Annie, when they go fucking hard with their shit, I'm just kind of like,
I will say, this musical went fucking hard.
This musical went fucking hard, which is why I was able to get into it. At the beginning, I was concerned because it's a very, very, like, little girl voice, and I just don't really like cheesy little kid things. So, you know, I think for me, the original movie, and this is, you know, I know that I'm the odd one out. People fucking love Matilda. I actively thought that watching that movie is like a chore.
I was a huge fan of the book for obvious reasons. We'll talk about that in a minute. This felt like me reading a self-insert fanfic as a kid.
The entire time. I was just like, this is Felicia. This is Felicia.
Yep.
You have powers and you never told me, which I'm a little sad about, but that's okay. We reveal things at our own time.
I loved the book. I didn't feel very strongly about the movie. I was a gifted kid. So for people who are new to the podcast, because this does not come up frequently, but it is very relevant for this episode, I am a gifted kid. I went to college when I was 14. So I'm like 19 in my master's program now, like an old fucking lady. But I don't know why I delivered that. I'm like, how do I do this without it sound like I'm bragging, but also not put myself down at the same time?
Yes, no.
That's the one, I will say the one thing that is difficult about all this stuff is that anytime I talk about the facts of my life, it sounds like I'm bragging like an asshole. And I'm like, that's just what happened though. I think everybody should get the education that meets them at their level, and I was lucky enough to be able to get that, which is rare for gifted students, but we can go into a whole thing about it. We don't have time today.
Buy me a coffee rant we can do.
I have
a lot of thoughts about education.
We just put out a plan for the U.S. education system.
I get don't even get me started. I get so mad at her. I can't.
And now, Biden, if you want access to it, you need to give me $5 American. I will admit, after reading this book, I did briefly try to move something with my mind. I gave up pretty fast, but I had to give it a shot.
Of course. And I think we've all tried to see if we had powers at some point. You should try now. You should try like now, you know? Time has passed. You're in grad school. Like an old lady. Fucking wild. All the 25-year-olds out there are like, fuck
my
you.
master's in library science unlocked my telekinesis powers.
That's a great sell for a library science degree. How do you think the librarians shelve the books, you silly geese?
All right. Basic movie facts. Running time of 1 hour and 57 minutes. Released December 2nd, 2022 on Netflix and directed by Matthew Warchus, who he was the guy who also directed on Broadway, which makes sense.
Oh, nice.
So, I think we just need to jump into the movie because it was long and we have a lot to uncover. So
long, yep.
Immediately upon opening, we get this fucking Wonka bar opening animation where there's this like purple Wonka bar that opens and inside is a golden ticket that says Roald Dahl. So I guess that's how all the Roald Dahl productions are going to be marked. And look, the animation quality was high, but it did piss me off. So
it pissed me off because again, my mentality was like, I have to sit through this. And I saw that and I was like, fuck this. I literally said that out loud to myself. I was like, fuck this.
I will say it started off on a really bad note of the first song where there you see a bunch of babies and it has little kids doing like exaggerated little kid voices singing like they are the baby's thoughts. And I really fucking hated that. I was not feeling it.
No. And again, I That's what I hate the most. I'm also like, and no offense to babies out there, I'm not a huge baby person. Like, there are occasional babies I'm like, good, but like, I think a lot of people, like, when they're like, look at this baby, they demand me to do baby voices and cute stuff. And when I look at a baby, I generally
have the internal feeling that other people seem to get stirred inside them when they see a cute baby. I feel like I lack that. I also have that with cute animals sometimes, where I just can't make myself care. I wish I could care more. I know you don't have that, but I just don't.
I fucking lose it. Yeah, no. But like, anyway, I look at a baby, I'm like, it blob. So them doing that and then singing, I was like, oh, fuck, 2 hours of my life is gonna be rough.
But this song is called Miracle. It's basically about how all the parents call their kids miracles all the time and hold them up above all the other kids, which is mostly to contrast with how shit Matilda's parents are. And once Matilda's parents came in, I was like, okay, this could be fun. Like, I might enjoy myself here.
Yes.
I liked the parents a lot in this. Well, I didn't like them, but the performances were very fun. So the production design for this is also very over the top. I saw some reviews compared it to Paddington, which I totally see. This movie is not a Paddington level.
No. It's also got, like, Wes Anderson color schemes and, like, like, I was thinking about Wes Anderson, like, a lot throughout this movie.
Here's the thing. Watching this made me realize how bad most Wonka adaptations are.
Yes.
Because I'm going to be honest, this was better than, I think, any of them. And I'm sorry to say that. I know that may seem sacrilege. You'd think the people who have the Wonka podcast would have a little goodwill. Maybe it's just because I'm jaded of the Wonka stories at this point.
Yeah.
Because that is true. We're very cynical.
I mean, I liked it, and going into it, I actively disliked Matilda. Not my thing. I left this. I enjoyed it.
Exactly.
That's genuinely shocking. And I think that they did, like you said, a very good job, I think, of like,
here's the thing. Especially with the musicals, this is like technically a much better musical than Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, the Broadway ones are, because like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory was delivered to mixed critical reviews. This was like got rave reviews. It won a like record-breaking amount of Olivier awards. Like it is like well regarded as a good musical. And man, working from that, much better, much more entertaining.
Yes.
Anyway, so Matilda's mom comes in and she's like, I am not pregnant, immediately gives birth. Then you get this sick fucking solo from the doctor. He gets a chorus and a quick change into a zebra suit, which kind of sets the tone for like, this is very whimsical. The Wormwoods wanted a boy but got a girl. The song ends in this fucking nuts clothing commercial ass soundstage. There were a few moments in this where I felt like I was watching a life insurance commercial, but they were
like
rare.
We've seen that Macy's commercial, and that's kind of what it looked
when
like.
I grow up, that's a Macy's commercial. Come on, man. So now we're into the actual movie for real. Matilda's parents call her both a boy and it, non-binary legend. I'm joking. She's not happy about it. You could probably make a very compelling narrative about comparing this to the trans experience. Definitely, because like the things are there. I did not do it during this writing, but I'm sure you could enjoy that if you want to.
I thought about it, actually.
She has never gone to school and just reads a lot from the library. I was reading about this. Apparently she's supposed to be 5. I thought she was 8 at the youngest.
Yeah.
This is like an 8 or 9-year-old to me.
I have no idea how to judge children ages either, so I was like, she's 10 or less.
Yeah, she's under 10, but I would not put her as 5. I don't know, man.
No, yeah.
But it's the necessity of child actors, is they're always going to be a little bit older, so.
Yeah.
Parents get a visit from the school professionals to see if her homeschooling is okay, and this is where Miss Honey is introduced, and she's super nice and sweet, as all of the adaptations Miss Honey is. She's great.
I liked her better than the other movie, Miss Honey.
All the performances in this were good. The only one I'm going to be honest, I didn't always love Emma Thompson as Mrs. Trunchbull. It didn't work for me all the time. I don't know why. But it was still fine. Like, it wasn't bad. I was just like, okay. And then the dad is like, psych, you're going to school, and I told the headmaster you fucking suck. So then Matilda takes revenge on her parents by putting shit in their hair dye and stuff. She does a bunch of cartwheels. The song is eventually is basically just her saying no offense, but that never would have happened to me in regards to a bunch of books. Basically could never be me. I'm built different. The song. Good enough song, though. Very cute message about standing up for yourself. But she puts dye in her dad's hair tonic and his hair turns green. Her dad also has a fake tan. And I'm just saying it was a little Oompa Loompa. I had to note.
It was.
And this got me. She goes on the roof, and I'm not fucking joking. She has a fun personality moment with a seagull. And you say, Elaine, what do you mean by a bird has a fun personality moment? I meant exactly this shit.
Oh my God, I didn't even think about that.
That is what I was talking about.
That is so fucking
And the seagull is
funny.
there for no fucking reason.
No
She just
reason
does a
at
bunch of
all.
cartwheels on the roof and like sings at the bird for a minute, who just goes like, ee, and then goes back inside. There was no point in the seagull being there, I guess just to add a fun little side thing. She does a backward handstand walk on the roof, which is fucking crazy. So anyway, the whole song is basically being like, if people are mean to you and like people who have a bunch of authority over you, fuck them up. It's the song, essentially. So then she goes to school. The school is called Cruncham Hall, but there's this like side narrative being introduced where she meets with this librarian about these circus performers who want a kid but can't have one, so they throw themselves into their work, but she like can't figure out the ending, and as the story progresses you learn more about the story. And the girl who plays Matilda, yeah, it's very well acted out and played out. The girl who plays Matilda is like very compelling and good at her role in this. Like, I very much bought her as the character. I liked the librarian lady
so much. And it's like a bookmobile. Oh, it's so cute.
The circus performer thing was completely added for the musical, and it really helps give an insight into, like, Matilda's own mental state, where she's at in the story, too.
Yeah.
Because otherwise she's this, like, unflappable girl boss. Besides that. So it kind of gives her, like, oh, you know.
Yes.
Matilda says to the librarian, if people do scary things to me, I can just do scary things right back. And the librarian says, Matilda, two wrongs don't make a right. And she just goes, unless they do. Which, like, hell yeah, bitch.
There is so much in this movie that's like priming her to be a serial killer. That was another thing I was thinking the whole time. Like, she gets so pissed and she gets revenge on everybody.
She's either running a union, which is probably what's going to happen. She's just running a union. Or if this takes a dark turn. Which actually, we'll talk about Roald Dahl's original plan for this book later. Because, woof.
Boy.
Because I felt this feels uncharacteristically positive for Roald Dahl. And then I read his original draft. I'm gonna spoil it now. Roald Dahl's original draft for this book was about an evil girl who uses telekinesis to rig horse races for her corrupt teacher. And then she gets killed by a stampede. What? And his editors thought it was so dark that they ghosted him.
What the actual fuck?
And his editor was like, hey, what if you made her the protagonist and made her powers be a manifestation of the abuse in her life and a way for her to help overcome these tribeless situations and like learning the power within her? And he has never acknowledged that the editor gave him that entire idea.
Genuinely, that
biographer figured out.
That
editor
really
saved that fucking man so
every
many
franchise.
times.
Yes,
every time I hear about the notes the editor gives, I'm like, thank you. Thank you. Thank fucking God. Oh my God. Yeah, basically Roald Dahl was like, I got it really wrong the first time, but a year later I got it right for real, but never mentioned his editor gave him all the suggestions that fixed it. And the only reason we know that is because his biographer went through all of his papers and was like, hey, hold up. So wild. Now we get the school song. The stereotypical like mean girl shows up, and she's not actually mean. She just like has this red beret.
She's the really cool pissed off Girl Scout. That's her vibe.
That is exactly what it is. She shows up and she's like, this school is fucking crazy. You guys are not gonna cut it. But the children's ensemble in this is so good.
So
they got every talented child to work on this movie.
Dancing. I was like, Christ. Annie. That's the kind of stuff I like. Intense dancing. Oh, choreography. They basically just tell them, like, you guys need to be really careful. Don't get in trouble, because they call school a living hell. Which, like, they're not playing it easy on this. No.
They meet the prefects, and then the second chorus happened. And this second fucking chorus made me lose my goddamn mind. Because it went back through, it was the same as the first chorus, but now this time, they recontextualized it. So every letter, they used every letter of the alphabet in the song, but in, like, creative ways.
So good.
Like, Zed was Phys Ed. I was losing my fucking mind.
So
it was
good.
So, and I'm pretty sure they did it on the stage production with like letter blocks, like the big thing. I was so good. And then this was the point where I was like, oh fuck, this is good. Fuck you. I was like mad.
Yep. I was like, wait, I am not going to do budgeting while I watch this, am I?
I say this, I'm like, yes, it was so good. I watched this on 1.75 speed. I will clarify. I wasn't that into it. Yeah. But that's how I watch even my favorite movies. So that's not a diss on this. Then she gets into Miss Honey's class, and there's leftover calculations from the adult classes held at night on the board, and Matilda gets called to polish it off, which she takes as solving the problems, and her genius is revealed.
I really wanted to quickly shout out, there's a little boy in the class named Nigel who just starts like staring at all those math problems and literally
Nigel
starts having a freak out.
Nigel was the fucking cutest in this movie.
He was so cute.
Every time he came on screen, I was so excited. I was like, Nigel, my boy!
Favorite. My
he
boy!
was, I wanted to give him a hug so bad. He got so stressed about the math problems on screen. And Miss Honey was just like, they're not for you.
They're
it's
not
fine.
for you.
Calm down.
And he had to do a deep breath, but I was like, Nigel, I feel you so hard. That was me in every single math class. Just looking at anything. I was like, me. That's me. And then Felicia's Matilda. It's perfect.
I was bad at math, okay? I was not Matilda. Let me clarify.
Well, no, Matilda said it's okay.
I never took past Algebra 1.
You whore. I had to do pre-calc and calc and all that fucking shit. Anyway, let go, Elaine, of your past trauma with math. I am good. We may now continue.
So Matilda lists off a bunch of books she's read, and the Miss Honey is like, let me tell Miss Trunchbull about it. And Miss Trunchbull is not having it. She's like, we will not treat this child any differently, blah, blah, blah. She also calls Matilda a gangster.
That was wild.
Like, that one came from nowhere.
That was wild.
Miss Honey advocates for radical acceleration, as she should, as it is proven by studies to have the best outcome for gifted students. Fun fact. I have skin in this game.
I love it.
But Miss Trunchbull is like, rules, we cannot have exceptions to the rules. And then we get her whole hammer throwing backstory, which this is something I thought I remembered, and I looked it up, and it was true. The Miss Trunchbull role was normally a role meant to be played in drag.
Oh.
Which vocally, it felt like the songs were sometimes a little weird for Emma Thompson's range, which I think explained that to me.
Yeah.
Like, did you get that vibe? I don't know if that was just me, but it felt like...
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. Odd. So I love Emma Thompson. So yes. I was delighted she was in it. But thinking back on it now, when you were saying you weren't fully sold on the Trunchbull, like she did well, but it wasn't like fully it. I think it's because and maybe you feel the same way. I don't know how much you've seen, but I've seen her in all these like lovely little movies where like Sense and Sensibility, and she's just like really nice and everything. And so like seeing her do this like evil character was like still like good and fun, but there was still like that same, like, I'm just so used to that voice being like a calming thing, even though she was still like putting on a voice. I think it was hard to like take that out of my head while watching her. I think the other movies, Trunchbull is way scarier.
Yeah, she was just the only one I didn't buy all the way.
Yeah. Yes.
And like, I was a Nanny McPhee girl. I loved Nanny McPhee as a kid. Anyway, that's unrelated. That's just my major Emma Thompson exposure was Nanny McPhee. So, but she sings a whole song about how her being a hammer throwing champion taught her to follow the rules, and the kids have it memorized, and she makes them sing it along over the loudspeaker, which I did think was really cool. Like, this is just structurally a pretty good musical. Like,
yes.
Now, when we say this movie's great, I want to say, in the schemes of every movie I've ever seen, this is a mid tier. In the schemes of this podcast, top 5 for sure.
Yeah, oh, for sure.
For fucking sure. It makes you reframe movies differently when like this is the pool you're dealing with, you know?
Yes. Yes.
If I had to choose a movie to rewatch of the ones we've seen on this podcast, I think I would genuinely pick this one, even though I watched it earlier today. Like, right? I would rather rewatch this. Oh, Paddingtons.
Oh, the Paddingtons. Of course. Paddingtons are at the top, and then Matilda would be 3. It was funny. I was watching... this is so funny you mentioned it because...
1971, but if I remove any of my, like... there's part of me that feels like I should like it more than I do, which is the problem with 1971. I do like...
There's a lot of pressure, too. Yeah, so, like, when I was watching Matilda and I finished it, I was like, you know what? That was good, but I don't need to ever watch it again. I think that was kind of, like, where it was. But like you said, in this pool, though, like... top tier.
Yeah, this is context. Top 5 at the very least.
Yes.
1971 I do feel is the best Wonka movie, but yes. I also think we've become so jaded to the concept of Willy Wonka and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory that almost anything that's not that will automatically rank above.
Yes, it was such a different plot we got to play with. I think that's a fair thing to consider here.
There's new plot. It's not just we hate the Wonka movies. It's that we have been beaten down by this plot at this point. That it is a gift to hear something different. So she gets back home and her dad confiscates the grapes of wrath because how can grapes be angry? Which, I'll be honest, good. I had that thought as a kid. Do you guys remember the Grapes of Wrath VeggieTales parody? Because I sure do. Anyway.
No.
He rips it up, but it takes like way too long, and it's very embarrassing for him.
So good.
And then she was going to glue the book back together, but then puts glue in his hat instead. And honestly, I think she kind of did him a favor because he looked better when the hat was glued down.
He did. It was funny because she had a paused moment. She paused right before she did it, and she heard Miss Honey's voice with the whole like 2 wrongs don't make a right. And I thought, I was like, oh, maybe she won't do it. She's going to learn like morals. And then she's like, nah, and she just goes to town.
It's
and then
funny
she's
because
like,
I thought she was going to learn that lesson, and she kind of doesn't. She just kind of gets proved
and it
right.
doesn't bite her in the ass ever. That was the other thing. I kept waiting for this to be a whole thing where it's like, you can't just constantly be like, you know, eye for an eye. It's not going to work out in the end. But like, fuck that. It works out for her great. If anything, it's like what helps solve everything.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. But I love a revenge plot. I love revenge. I love petty revenge. Fun facts about me.
That's this whole movie. So
yeah, that's probably, I was like, get him. Go get him.
So she goes back to school. The kids talk with Matilda, and one kid talks about the horrors of Miss Trunchbull. And this kid, Bruce, eats a cheese puff a second. And he was my favorite supporting character because he talks and genuinely puts a cheese puff in his mouth every 1 second, and it made me lose my mind. It was very funny. She's said to have turned a kid inside out. This is Miss Trunchbull, not Matilda. Let me clarify. Miss Trunchbull turned a kid inside out, and he had to use cling film to keep his organs inside. And she sat on a kid until he was jelly and threw a kid out the window. And then the chokey is introduced. This is some big Matilda iconography. And it's this cabinet with a bunch of knives in it, if I remember. It's basically baby's first Iron Maiden. So,
yes. Hot little solitary confinement with a lot of extra danger.
Matilda destroys Miss Trunchbull with facts and logic, so this poor kid doesn't get blamed for something he doesn't do. And then Miss Trunchbull turns her ire on a girl with pigtails and throws her 40 feet, and an announcer does show up when she throws it. So there's like, anytime Miss Trunchbull does a big throwing thing, an announcer shows up in like the audio, and it did make me laugh. I thought that was good. I thought that was a good bit. Matilda goes more into the circus story. We don't need to get into all the details of this because there's a lot going on, but we'll talk about how it comes back later. It's basically clearly inspired by stuff in her life, and the librarian is like, very good story. But how are you doing? Because this is dark.
Yes. And Matilda keeps like kind of lying because like the librarian will be like, your parents must be so proud. And Matilda's like,
yes, they are. They say they're so proud of me.
So this librarian has no idea, well, hypothetically has no idea what's going on. I feel like the librarian was like, something seems sus here, kid. Because, like you said, like, this story seems pretty dark. And I've asked to see your parents. You keep not. And you look very sad and distant sometimes. I think something might be wrong. But okay, it's fine.
They go back to school again. Miss Honey brings Matilda grown-up books to read while the rest of the class is doing their lessons. I have had a similar thing happen to me, so that made me laugh a little bit. I was like, haha, same. Fun fact, I was so bored in school, I would handwrite out the first chapters of books so I could reread them later. Woof.
Woof.
Anyway.
That's so cute and sad.
Yeah. So now we're on to the chocolate cake plot line. Matilda gets blamed. Basically, Miss Trunchbull has her big-ass chocolate cake, and this is very Wonka-esque. And yes. I go into like an exploratory essay in a second about the comparisons between this and Wonka. Anyway, Miss Trunchbull eats a big chocolate cake every day, and somebody ate the chocolate cake instead, ate a piece of it, and she goes to blame it on Matilda, but that Bruce lets out a big old burp that Miss Trunchbull tastes in the air and realizes he was the culprit. I hated that.
Absolutely. I looked away. I was I can't.
I want to say just now, Bruce Bogtrotter is just a sympathetic Augustus Gloop. That's literally all he is.
Truly.
It's the same character. Miss Trunchbull brings in a whole cake, and she's like, you need to eat this now. And it's like the size of his torso. Eat every crumb, and then you'll get forgiven. And this is what I found really interesting about the story as a whole. So this story was written, I think, 2 years before Roald Dahl's death. So it was one of the last things he published. So there's a chance that his things have changed over time. But then reading what the original draft was versus the end, I'm like, okay, you're still the same guy. But the whole thing is about Miss Trunchbull is kind of on some Wonka shit here. Like, this whole story is about nonsensical authority figures and punishment and the absurdity of that. And Wonka is literally the exact same thing, but painted in a positive light.
That's so true.
Right? Like, I'm like, I don't know if I'm articulating it right, but
no,
isn't
I think
it like
you're right,
the thematic
because
inverse?
And it's interesting because we look at Wonka and there are a lot of theories, but it seems like each punishment that happened in the factory was specifically geared to a kid. You look at Matilda, you crank that up a notch, and again, like Wonka seems like this positive person anyway. But Trunchbull is negative because she keeps falsely accusing kids. She actually has no basis. Like Matilda first getting blamed, she had no reason to believe that. Bruce's little burp ended up revealing him, but throughout this entire movie, she's just pointing at kids, and the kids are like, I genuinely wasn't there. Like, they have to hide a kid at one point, you know? So I feel like you're right. Like, it's like we took that, we kind of flipped it.
Is worse. But also at the same time, Wonka like goads the kids into doing what he wants them to do to then punish them for it, as if it's like some inherent moral thing and not something like he was kind of leading them to do anyway.
Got fucked up.
Yeah,
you know. Tell me that in the Chokey. Tell me the difference. Like
it's very similar, and I will say this does have all the classic Roald Dahl ick. Like Roald Dahl constantly conflates physical beauty with goodness. Like you can see in like the way the Trunchbull is like, you know, stereotypically ugly, and like people who break gender norms also don't get treated very well in the in like Roald Dahl books. And like, I'm not saying I expect him to deliver a Judith Butler seminar on gender. I'm not expecting that. I'm just saying some of this stuff hasn't aged fantastically, you know. And he also like almost always is demonizing fatness to some degree. Like it's hard not to find that in his books. And it makes me just like, it's a very old hat. So as much as like I did genuinely enjoy watching this musical, I've kind of just gotten really cynical and soured. I've just soured on all the Roald Dahl stuff. And then I wrote here, shocker, Wonka podcaster gets a little cynical after 80 fucking episodes. And I was just like, do we need Roald Dahl revivals now? Like, I enjoyed this, but like, he's not the only person who's ever done absurdism, which is how it feels like people act sometimes. I'm like, there are people who have done that. Like, this is not new. Anyway, they get a big dance number in sequin jackets to root for Bruce to eat the chocolate cake. And he does do it. So then Miss Trunchbull is like, all right, sure, but you still have to go to the Chokey. And Matilda is like, no, but you said he would be fine if he ate every crumb. And he did. And not to be that person, but there was a lot of residue on that plate.
Okay, I was thinking the same thing. I was like, I don't want to be that bitch.
I'm not advocating for the punishment. We're working on a technicality. He did not eat every crumb.
Yeah, no. It's like,
but I can't say anything. I held a coup against my science teacher when I was 11. I'm just like Matilda, so I cannot say. So now we get to When I Grow Up. It was a generic Tony Bates song. Very cute, though.
That's cute. I thought I was going to hate it, and then I liked it. And then I was thinking, are those all the babies grown up that we saw at the beginning?
That would be cool if it was.
I think it was. I was trying to think of, like, I don't remember the twins and everything, but there were some kids I was like, I think these might be the same kids that grew up.
That would be really smart. On the stage, this is a famous song because they put all the kids on these giant swings that like swing out towards the audience. I'll have to send.
I was a swing kid. I fucking love the swing.
Look up Matilda swings. It's worth looking up a photo of because it's pretty cool.
Ooh, that's so cool. Oh, I love it. Yeah, everybody look it up. This is really fucking cute.
One kid says he's going to watch TV all the time when he grows up, and I was like, yes, suck it, Roald Dahl. But this is the one that, like, I felt like I was watching a life insurance commercial a little bit. Like, just with, like, the overly polished design and, like, oh, the kid's flying an airplane now, but he's still a kid, and, oh, he's on a motorcycle, and the bike turns into a motorcycle. I'm like, when's the fucking Macy's logo going to come on screen, you know?
Right. But the ending of this song.
Where Miss Honey is also a part of it.
And she starts sad singing When I Grow Up, and basically it's like her talking about how, like, you know, it just really hit as an adult, kind of the idea of like, oh shit, like, you know, in a way it's like really nice because you want to grow up, so you have free will, all these things that, like, it's very empowering to eat cheese for dinner sometimes. And it reminded me of like when I entered my early 20s and I was like, I finally get like kind of full autonomy of my life, it feels like. And it's a great
realizing
feeling.
I can go to a place without asking people first. It's still
stunning.
That takes years to set in to get you like fully used to that.
And like honestly, like with a lot of my mental health stuff going through like school and stuff, I was like, I just can't wait to like not have to do this regulated thing that is not great for me. And like when I'm an adult, I don't have to, you know, it's a choice if I want to do more school or not and stuff. And anyway, it was just kind of like also the idea of like when you're like, you know, a kid and you have all these dreams, then you're an adult and you're like, I am still trying to work it. This is where I'm going to include my very short story. I got lash extensions before watching this. And I got them because I'm going to see Taylor Swift. I will be sobbing the entire time. And that way I can like keep shit out of my eyes, but still be a little glamorous. But you're not allowed to get your lashes wet for 24 hours after you get them. And I was watching this within that. I was like,
shit.
And we know I cry. At everything. And that really hit home for me personally. And I was like, keep your eyes open. No, don't cry. Literally, when I try to not cry, this is about to be the biggest like reveal of my life. When I need to not cry at something, my reset is the scene in Forgetting Sarah Marshall where he helicopters his dick.
I need to watch Forgetting Sarah Marshall at this point. It's
so good, but it's just Jason Segel. And you see it. He's just helicoptering his dick, and I was like, it's my reset. Whatever.
I didn't know
I'm
that
like,
was in. The only thing I know about Forgetting Sarah Marshall is the whole puppet thing, because I heard about Jason Segel talking that
you would love
he,
it.
in a moment of depression, wrote the vampire puppet thing and thought, this is the next big thing. Yes. This is going to be my breakthrough. And someone called him and said, you can never show that to anyone ever.
Yes.
And as someone who makes puppets when they're depressed, I feel very seen by that, and I think I need to see that movie as a response. And now that I know it's your anti-crime, I think I'm going to have to do it.
You have to do it. It's great.
Wow.
Anyway,
well, that's fun.
This entire movie was really tough for me because there are really sweet moments. I was like, I can't fucking cry. So I just thought a lot about Jason Segel's dick.
Fun.
So great.
Matilda goes to the library and asks, where's the revenge section?
I loved that so much.
And then the librarian was like, we don't have one. Are you good? So then she keeps telling the story and kills off the lady. Basically, the whole story is there's an escapologist and a acrobat, and they are a couple and they want to have kids and they can't have kids for a while, so they get really depressed and basically plan this like death-defying stunt. But then in the last minute before the stunt, they get pregnant. And she announces it, and she's like, I'm not going to do a stunt anymore. And then the evil stepsister is like, actually, no, you signed a contract, and you have to fucking do it. And then they do it, and the lady dies, and breaks all the bones in her bodies, but she gives birth to the kid, and then she dies. And then the kid gets adopted by the evil stepsister and has a Cinderella-esque existence.
Yes.
Matilda goes home and gets really pissed about her parents cheating people out of money, and then her parents lock her in her room. And then she writes this whole fantasy about the escapologist finding her, and he jumps into this huge dramatic number in about half of a second from nowhere, and it did make me giggle a little bit.
It made me giggle, and it was unsettling.
Yes. Yeah, but she was like... And then he comes and he was like, don't cry, little girl. And I was like, whoa.
I was hearing... Jason Segel's dick. I was like, oh my god, I can't cry. Like, this is so sweet. Oh, it was so
But
cute.
At the end, it made me feel... At the end, it made me cry. Because it's like, she needs it. And it's like, you know... It shouldn't have made me laugh, but it did make me laugh a little bit. But by the end, I was sad again.
Well, Matilda's face in the meantime, she's on the ground, and she has the most intense stare. And she's just like saying,
anger.
And this is like the hardest part of the story. And she's just it was very like possessed moment. And I was like, whoa. And this is when I was like, she's gonna serial killer it up in here.
She goes back to school, and all the kids essentially idolize her because she is starting a revolution at school, essentially, because she said no to the Trunchbull. And they start giving her stuff. And one kid gave her a curly whirly, which I was so fucking pleased. Because that so easily could have been a Wonka bar. Mm-hmm. They so easily could have been just hand her a piece of Wonka candy, and they didn't.
Like, how Wonkaverse are they going to make it? I was getting scared too. I was like, we're involving candy. What's you going to do? If a Wobble Scrumptious Fudge Mellow Delight shows up, I'm going to pause it and have a scream.
And the next song is The Smell of Rebellion. Basically, the Trunchbull runs them through a military prep course for phys ed, and she also sets off explosions. But then, out of fucking nowhere, it turns into this romance novel fantasy about her having a cottage in the woods without children and raising horses. We never get an explanation on that. That's never came back to. It just happens, and you just have to move on.
Yes.
Which is fine, I guess,
wild.
but cool. Then Newt gets in her coffee, and she blames on the first kid she sees and stretches out his ears. We never get a follow-up on that. Hope he's good.
Yes.
Matilda yells at her to stop, and the Trunchbull charges at her. And in this moment, time stops for Matilda to do a philosophical thesis on subjectivity.
The musical Dissociate song.
Yeah. She basically is like, why is everyone so angry all the time? And now I'm angry that everybody's angry. And I'm going to say it, autistic legend Matilda. There's literally nothing about her that is not that. Just she's meeting every criteria on the DSM-5.
Yeah.
So she disassociates to a hammock and a hot air balloon. It was very much Will Graham fishing in prison during season 2 of Hannibal. But it's essentially the Go to Your Happy Place song. And then her anger focuses on this cup that flings the Newt into Miss Trunchbull's underwear. And the telekinesis has been introduced. And at this point, I had kind of thought they weren't going to do the telekinesis, because I don't don't feel like it needed it. Like, the ending of the story does hinge on the telekinesis, but I was kind of happy that they weren't doing the telekinesis as I thought, because there was a kid earlier mentioning telekinesis, and I thought that was the people saying, yeah, we know about that, but it's not going to happen here.
Yeah, I like that. I liked the pacing because in the movie, the older movie, they kind of start that pretty early. But I like that she dealt with a lot herself, and then it's like this evolution that she then is able to do. Like,
Yes.
because I feel like it kind of distracted, and maybe that's why I wasn't interested in the other movie, because I was like, oh, this big thing is happening, and she's perfect, and nothing goes wrong kind of thing. But yeah, in this one, I really liked that they held off on doing it until at least halfway through the movie.
And when it mattered. I agree.
Yeah, right,
I
when it
think helps
mattered.
a lot.
Exactly. And I was like, this is cool. This I like.
So she goes to Miss Honey's house, and it is revealed that Miss Honey has the exact same backstory that Matilda was telling. And this is fucking wild. So she was having visions. That is the thing that, to me, I got stuck on. Was that the escapologist in the acrobat story was true, and Miss Honey was the kid, and Miss Trunchbull was the evil step-aunt who adopted her, and then stole her house and gave her an itemized bill for raising her, which Miss Honey is still trying to pay off, which is sucks.
Really,
I mean, she's
fucked
awful.
up. The stakes were just way better in this movie, I think, too. Like, I felt way worse for a lot of people. It just felt more like,
I
God.
also agree. I liked this better than the 90s movie, which I know is like sacrilege. Did I miss Danny DeVito? Of course I miss Danny DeVito. Miss Honey sings about the shed she lives in, how much she cares about it, and that her past is revealed. Her dad's the escapologist, and it's all true. And the song from the escapologist is laid over her singing about her house. And it did get a little tear from me. Got a little teary-eyed.
Sad and adorable.
And then it also is sweet because it puts parallels that Miss Honey is like Matilda's escapologist.
Yes.
And I mean, it's very literal if we think escaping the situation you're currently in. The escapologist is very... Also, escapologist, it never sounded right, no matter how many times people said
I didn't,
it.
believe
the escapologist. It never
I
felt
was like,
right.
is that a
Anyway.
real word? This feels weird. Not allowed.
They go back home. Matilda explodes some boxes. I think it was vandalism related. I'm not sure. It comes back later. She goes back home, and her parents are like, we're going to Spain, because the dad accidentally sold shit cars to the mafia.
Oops.
And this is where I said this is so much of a better musical than Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, though, good lord, it's like night and fucking day, which is true. I mean, like, it is so much better.
Yes.
Miss Trunchbull calls them all into the main test hall and makes them all answer questions, and if they get it wrong, they get thrown in the chokey. But they keep getting them right because Miss Honey is a good teacher, and Miss Trunchbull says they're cheating. She makes them spell a fake word, which is... so then they have a Spartacus moment where they all start spelling things incorrectly because she can't put them all in the chokey, but psych, she made chokies for all of them.
Which, when and how and why? Like, what is that? That as a song montage?
Building 18,
Do
30
the hokey pokey,
chokies.
build a chokey. All the children shall go
You know who
in.
built it? The Tinkerman.
The
Bring him back.
Tinkerman! The Tinkerman can.
But the whole message of this is really about respecting children as people. And message-wise,
Yeah.
I get down with this way more than Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Like, the actual
Yes.
message behind the Matilda, I'm into. Like, I don't, I think
Yes.
it's really positive and uplifting. So then Matilda... This part is sick. Matilda possesses the chalk to write as if she's Miss Honey's dad's ghost to tell Miss Trunchbull to give Miss Honey back her house. And then she gathers all the chains that, let down the doors of the chokey, because it was this big choreographed moment. She gathers them all together, makes them form into the form of a man like the escapologist, and she has the big chain guy destroy all the chokies, and then Matilda... telekinesis-wise, braids her hair in a pigtail, spins her around, and then she breaks out the glass roof, like the glass elevator. Very different from the end of the novel and the movie, if I remember correctly, but the changes here make sense, because it was this whole stealth thing where they had to sneak into Miss Trunchbull's house, and placing it in this way makes the triumph way more collective, because the novel is extremely individualistic, and most Roald Dahl novels are, highly individualistic, where, this is way more almost about collective action.
Yes.
If you kind of look at it, because Matilda would not have been as successful as she was without the help of the other kids.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't have been as successful without the help of Matilda, which is a much more positive message, in my opinion, than, here's this super genius girl who has telekinesis powers and is able to escape abusive situations because of it.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Sorry if that's not you. Do you know what I mean? It's more,
Yeah.
I don't know. So, she stops Miss Trunchbull before she hits the ground, and Miss Honey grabs her keys and goes, "This is my school now, run." So Miss Trunchbull just leaves, and Miss Honey takes over the school, and then you get the absolute fucking banger that is Revolting Children.
Oh, so good.
The dancing of this is insane. Did I cry at this song? A little bit. Weird one to cry at? A bit. But that's between me and myself, okay? But it's just such a far cry of what we're used to. Like, this movie's kind of about revolutions, protest, and collective action.
Yes.
When you look about it more broadly, which is so not the things I associate with Roald Dahl. And it's also not really what the novel's about.
You know what it is, too? I think this plot is way more character-driven. Kind of like you were saying, it's not individualistic, but I feel like characters actually have, like, story arcs, and they have growth. And I feel like
there's growth in this, which is huge.
Other book, like, I'm just obviously the only other Roald Dahl book I have read is Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, but I just think of like Charlie's kind of a stagnant character. Things happen to
Marvelous Medicine.
Oh, you're right. Sorry, I feel like those kids for the most part they're stagnant.
Wait, no, did we or did I read that and tell you?
No, I read it. I read it.
Okay, we did. Okay,
I read it as well. Yeah. I feel like
that one also has the same problem.
Yeah, like those, like the characters are technically stagnant. Just things happen to them. Like even the bad kids, they don't turn and go, now I'm going to be good. Yeah, but like in this version, like Matilda has growth, even if it's like, I'm going to still fuck shit up. Miss Honey has such great character growth. Like it's so good. Yeah. She has like such a good backbone by the end of this. So I think that's what really kept me going because I was like, wait, like I'm invested in these characters, not just like things happening necessarily.
Yes.
You know? Yeah.
Yeah. Parents show up and Miss Honey sees how much they suck and she adopts Matilda. And Matilda magics off her dad's hat in one final act of kindness, which was nice of her. Mm-hmm. Now you get the Still Holding My Hand song, which, I cried. Who cares?
I would have cried. I would have cried with her staring at her
at double speed at this point.
Yeah, just flying into the air with that helicopter. God.
I'm gonna have to watch this movie now because of this discussion.
Gonna have to.
And I'm gonna watch it and go, really?
It happens within the first like 10 minutes of the movie too. Okay. So yeah.
This is so. I feel like we've learned so much about each other this episode.
We really
like
have.
I've talked a lot about my childhood and my education, and you've talked about how when you don't want to cry, you picture Jason Segel helicoptering his dick. Vulnerability.
And to think we held off on doing this for so long.
I know.
We held off.
If we had known what we would have learned. They move into Miss Honey's rightful home, and Miss Honey is like, this is my emotional support 9-year-old. Like, it really feels like she needs Matilda as much as Matilda needs her. They make over the whole school. It looks super lovely. And then they go outside, and they have a whole fucking carnival on the playground. And I'm like, where did they get that? And then there were giraffes. And then 15 hot air balloons. And then
giant
my final
slides,
notes on this were, well, that was annoyingly fucking cute. Is this what it's like to watch good Roald Dahl media?
I think that this movie, kind of like we talked about, shocked me. It made me like this plot line. I think as a kid, I would have highly enjoyed this. I think it's very validating as a kid to see someone like demand some respect. And I think, there are a lot of bullies we have in our lives. And I think it was nice to also kind of showcase like family can be bullies sometimes. And I think there's a lot of things where it's like you just have to listen to your parents and, do that. But I think it was nice to shed light that like, family can sometimes be very damaging and mean. And that's not okay. And I really liked that as a message. I really like the empowerment that the kids had without being shitty. Like, they weren't just shitty little kids. It wasn't newsies.
And they kept calling themselves, like, revolting kids. But they really weren't. They were, like, fine.
They weren't. Yeah, like they were, like,
I think it does have that Roald Dahl where, like, he does advocate for kids. That's the weird thing, is in all of Roald Dahl's other media, he advocates for kids being, like, naughty and, like, doing stuff against authority. Then Wonka's this weird, and I get, like, the kids suck in Wonka, but it is a weird change on his normal formula.
Yes. You know? Yeah. So
like George from George's Marvelous Medicine would get eaten up in the Wonka factory. Like I don't,
God,
as would Matilda.
Sure.
Matilda is what's her name? The fucking Mary Miranda Piker. That's Matilda.
Yes,
like that's
that is Matilda. Yeah.
Anyway,
I thought what I really liked about it. It reminded me a lot of like moments in my life, and I could connect with it. And I thought it was just very cute.
I just remembered that when I was 8, the teachers asked us to write an essay about why we shouldn't have homework, and I asked if I could write for the homework because
Felicia,
I was so bored that I wanted the homework to do.
Oh man, Oh man, this is why we need to offer the accelerated tracks.
Yeah,
we need to offer gifted
then you get
programs.
fucking narcs like me. Ruin the fun for everybody. So anyway, we're on to the research bitch section, as I call it. I read this article called A Problem Like Matilda that was about adapting the book to a musical, and it interviewed Tim Minchin, who's an Australian comedian and songwriter who wrote the music. And this is where I learned about like Roald Dahl having painted her as like this horrible kid who fixes a horse race and shit like that.
So bizarre to me.
And I got some more stuff about that from Wikipedia. Matilda itself was a critical success. It was nominated for 10 Olivier Awards and won 7, more than any other show in history, and earned a place in the 2013 edition of Guinness World Records, the highest honor. The direction... I feel like the Olivier Awards are more important than the Guinness World Records, but you know what? It's fine. The director of the Broadway musical and the Netflix musical said of casting Matilda, this was the Wurchis guy, he looked for the kind of personality that you don't feel pity for. He said, Matilda's got to make you feel that she could look after you, which I think makes a lot of sense, because if you felt so sad for this girl, this movie would not work, because you'd just be like, somebody give her a hug, and like you couldn't even emotionally be okay. And then I learned from this other article that was like the key difference was between the movie, the musical, and the book and stuff like that. The ending number of this movie, the Still Holding My Hand one, the one that made me cry, was added for this production, which I was like, wow, that's new. But I guess they were basically the guy who wrote it was basically saying like it's a bookend number like that doesn't make as much sense in a Broadway musical, but you need it if you're doing a movie, which I do agree on. Like,
so true.
And then because of this, I was like, let me go back through the Netflix Roald Dahl deal info from that big thing, because Netflix, as we know, bought all the rights to the Roald Dahl story company, and the reason that we're covering this is because they've claimed they're trying to make a Dahl cinematic universe with movies, games, books, etc., etc. All that kind of shit. I did more research on the deal, and I will say, one note, there's no evidence that they followed through on this, though, but I appreciate the thought, is that the deal, this is from an article from Polygon, basically dealing with, like, the complicated legacy of Roald Dahl with the deal, that apparently with the purchase, the new details of the acquisition contract highlight an effort to verbalize anti-hate messaging as a way of grappling with his history of, like, anti-Semitism, which at times blurred into Nazi apologia, which is true. Roald Dahl was not great. Like, we've talked about this quite a bit, but he sucks, you know. And a portion of the money, the story company has said, a significant part, will also go to fund a charitable trust that will donate money in support of anti-racism, anti-hate, and children's health efforts, although no further details explain which organizations these donations might support, and I don't know if this has actually happened, but I appreciated they were at least calling it to light.
Yes.
I hope the money went where they said it does. And then there's really only like 3 confirmed projects, and I don't think... Okay, I genuinely don't think the Taika Waititi helmed animated Charlie and the Chocolate Factory Oompa Loompa series and Great Glass Elevator series, I don't think those are happening.
I don't think
there's
they are
been
either.
no updates from them since early 2021, and I've seen people, the animators who worked on it, saying they got fired, and Netflix has been notoriously cutting down, and most companies have been cutting down their animation departments, so I don't think that's happening, right?
I don't think so either.
And also, I don't want it to come out. I don't want it to happen.
Same.
So that's just personal. If there is a Charlie and the Chocolate Factory animated series, number 1, I want to be involved. And number 2, I never want it to happen. If it's going to happen, I better be consulted. You know?
We better be like little voice actor moments. I want to be like
I better be able to insert Gorman Eustace Petrel III into the plot. Apparently there might be a limited series of The Twits. Also no news on that though. And then there's the Henry Sugar Wes Anderson film, which is the closest to looking like it might happen. Because there's like, you know, a cast list with our beloved Dev Patel involved.
I forgot. Oh,
it does have Benedict Cumberbatch, who I don't like Benedict, so
I'm okay.
Benedict Cumberbatch, you may have been cool on Sherlock, but you said some weird shit about autistic people, and I'm not gonna let it slide, my man.
That's not good. That's not good.
That's just personal, though.
Bad.
Anyway,
Bad.
So that's Matilda. I feel like this was a fun episode. Like I really enjoyed doing this, which is rare.
It is
it's so rare to
honestly,
get to enjoy things.
Sometimes reviewing the media, it's hard because we're like, we've done it. Like, we've done the plots before, we've now watched it, and now we have to talk about it. And that can be a little wearing sometimes. It can be a little, like, a lot. This was just delightful.
I do recommend watching this if you have any interest. Like, if you like the musical, it's a good musical. It's a good time. I feel like our descriptions make this sound more boring than it was. Like, it was really visually and like, engaging to watch.
Yes.
So I do recommend
again,
it
like
if
the
you
Wes
have any
Anderson
interest.
thing where there's just like a lot happening on screen that like is interesting. It's eye catching, and the story is you get grabbed in, you get hooked in. It has a choky hold on your attention.
I am really glad though that this wasn't like I see how they're going to tie Wonka into this. Thank God.
Yes.
So, if all the Roald Dahl adaptations they're making are at this quality, it's not going to be bad. Like they're pretty good, but also not all of them are working from a 7 Olivier Award winning musical. So I don't have my hopes up.
Which, it remains.
Roald Dahl's works are notoriously difficult and horrible to adapt.
Yeah,
that's the one thing I've learned is don't try, they suck.
Yeah, people seem to have like mental breakdowns trying to do it. So
seriously,
best of luck.
I mean, look at us.
Look at us.
Well, after all of that, Felicia, do you have any prequel predictions?
I completely fucking forgot about the predictions, let me tell you.
Yeah, I'm gonna predict that someone's gonna have pigtails in the movie. There's a lot of pigtails happening.
I fucking hope so.
Wonka, Wonka's getting a low rating now because there were no pigtails.
It's a pretty generic prediction, and with how big this movie is, if there's not a single extra with pigtails, that'd be insane.
I know, exactly. Try me.
I'm trying to think of something musical that happened in this. Here we go. We get a mid musical number costume change that is imaginary and not real.
Oh, I like it. Nice.
Like a non-diegetic. Because these are going to be... Wow. Do you think Wonka is diegetic or non-diegetic? It's got to be a non-diegetic. There's no way it's diegetic.
Mm-hmm.
Diegetic.
Yeah.
I am making a prediction it is a non-diegetic musical now.
Boom.
Except for Oompa Loompas flute songs. Except for the little flute songs, and those are diegetic, so...
I like it. What's diegetic? I just was saying yes.
Okay, diegetic
like,
means
I think I remember,
that,
but I just want a refresher.
Diegetic means that it is happening as a part of the story.
Yes, okay.
And, like, other characters are aware that they are in a musical and doing musical numbers. For example, Teen Beach Movie is diegetic. Whereas non-diegetic is, like, when the musicals are emotional moments that are outside.
Gotcha.
So most musicals
Beauty
are non-diegetic.
School Dropout.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
Sorry, we had and that discussion of the definition of diegetic, that was non-diegetic because we both blacked out.
It was great.
What's that? I've never even heard of it.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't look at that on Wikipedia for 3 minutes.
Who are you? What are we doing?
What a musical. Isn't it nice to see things that are good every once in a while? Well, if you enjoyed this episode and want to hear us talk about more Wonka things and things that we like less than this, you can follow us on TikTok and Instagram at WonkaWatch. And if you have any, thoughts, suggestions, feelings, opinions, you can email us at wonkarapture@gmail.com. And if you like what we do and you want to support us, give us financial compensation for the long-term damage we've gotten from this. I went back to an old piece of media. I'm a big Hannibal fan. I watched the first scene of that show. Not the first scene. One of the first episodes. Will Graham does an extended metaphor about how the killer is like Willy Wonka with a golden ticket, and I almost cried. Long-term damage this podcast has caused for us.
Yes. Yep.
So if you want to support us, you can do so at buymeacoffee.com/WonkaWatch. You can join our little membership for $5 a month, and we put a bunch of fun stuff out there, commentary tracks, the Pop Tropica episode that went out last week. You can watch us actually play Pop Tropica. That'll be on there. And a bunch of other fun stuff is on there. And if you join, you get a little song on the podcast because we're cool.
And even though even though this biopic of Felicia was so delightful and cute, unfortunately, in the grand scheme of things, like it's not.
I mean, it's not even Wonka related. It's like not important.
It's
really.
not important, and it doesn't
that
even
bird
like.
With the personality moment, though, that felt important when I saw it. I got so excited.
So excited. Just the wrong movie, Felicia. And that's a real bummer.
The wrong movie, but it gave me hope.
Oh, but hope is not important.
It's not important. Bye.
Bye.